Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh boy, you think there's enough going on today? One doesn't even know where to start looking. Good God in heaven. You know, my sense that this horrible human being, Donald J. Trump, is living rent-free inside all of our heads, has become the central focus of, it seems, every institution in the country. And of course, even as we speak, he is the central figure in two huge court cases. One, the Supreme Court now hearing whether or not a president can be immune from all criminal prosecution, which is so absurd on its face. I can't even believe they ever took the case. And then, of course, the man in question is sitting glowering in a courtroom in New York City, where the former publisher of a rag known as the National Enquirer is testifying for the third day about how he and the former president conspired essentially to make sure that bad news about Trump was buried, and in fact totally fake news, concocted scandalous stories about his Republican opponents in the primary. It is, you know what, the thing about this is, because our heads start feeling like they're going to explode, at least mine does all the time, we have all learned that the bizarre thing about Trump is that whatever he is saying, whatever he accuses anyone of, and the accusations are like, a fire hose every day, whatever accusations that are spewing out of his mouth are invariably accusations that are only true if in fact they were leveled at him. They are all projections, every single one. So when I just said that David Pecker, the guy on the stand in New York City right now, laid out how not only were they going to catch and kill bad stories that might harm Trump's chances in the election, but they would in fact concoct Fidel Castro and Ted Cruz's father, sordid tales of infidelity, all of them made up out of whole cloth. Nothing. They were, in fact, fiction. But they were designed to do one thing: to get Donald Trump the nomination and then to get Donald Trump elected. And fake news. We never use that term. That's a Donald Trump term. It's become, everybody uses it now all over the world. Everybody says fake news whenever they don't like what they're hearing. Fake news. That was not a term, right? I never said it. It's Donald Trump. It's one of his projections. And it's now just a part of our reality. This ability to simply label something as fake news if it's unpleasant to you, unhelpful to you, and thus have it taken care of. And in fact, that's how Trump world operates. It's how they're able to get millions of Americans to believe a pack of lies. So fake news is what Trump peddles, always. And his charges of fake news have, of course, had a lot of deleterious effects, including making us not necessarily believe what any news operation is telling us. So, in a very Trumpian way, this horrible human being has managed to undermine our trust in pretty much everything, right? Our trust in each other, our trust in the institutions that, if we're going to have a functioning democracy, we have to be able to trust. He's eroded it all. It would be hard to imagine if you could somehow quantify the harm done by this one vile, soulless person. I hate to even call him a human because it feels like it implicates all of us then. It's just astonishing to me. I'm sorry, I'll never get over it. One would think that if somebody could accrue so much power, if a narcissist existed that could, in fact, get every spotlight in the world to shine on him and him only, bring whole nations to a halt, bring the globe to a halt, everybody waiting with bated breath to see what could possibly happen next, that it is this vile nobody? I mean, it's just beyond belief. I would at least want if somebody managed to have that kind of power, that they be worthy of it in some way. I don't care, even if they were horrible, at least worthy of it, in that you would say, well, I mean, after all, he or she is brilliant, or he or she is so physically beautiful and in fact charismatic, but none of those things are true. I know some people say he has charisma. It is lost on me. God, I loathe this man. I went to see a doctor yesterday because I've had, ongoing medical issues. I think it's called being alive and growing old. And I ended up talking to a physician's assistant, and this was a woman who she didn't know me, and I tried to explain to her. I said, well, I think I am under a lot of stress right now. And she wanted to know what, and I told her this and that and the other thing. And then I said, and I, I have, because of this podcast I do, I have to really immerse myself in the news. And her face, it was a riot. Her eyes got really big. And she said, oh no. Oh no, she said, I don't think anyone can have good mental health and immerse themselves in the news. I said, I would totally agree with you. She said she has not watched, or she has absolutely not had anything to do with news, she said, for years. And she seemed like a very happy person. Yes. But I'm also thinking, but I hope you do sort of, I mean, out of the corner of your eye, have some sense of what's going on so that at least you're going to vote, right? Oh my God. Okay, guys. So the world has gone mad today, and good's bad today, and day's night today. And I can't remember the rest of those. Like, da, da, da. And those guys today that women prize today are just silly gigolos. So though I'm not a gay romancer, I know that you're bound to answer when I propose. Okay. Oh, I wish I could sing. If I could sing, I would be less stressed, I think. I think singing, the ability to just, I I can sing. It's just that you don't want to have anybody have to hear it. Okay, so I'm avoiding everything. Guys, good God. And then there's this breaking news. I don't know if you heard that it's more court stuff that the New York State Supreme Court has overturned Harvey Weinstein's conviction. Uh, so that vile character is now back in the news. They said his trial wasn't fair. Witnesses were. It doesn't matter anyway. They overturned his conviction, and he, which was a number of sex crimes, right? Felony sex crimes, and he's been. It's what set off the Me Too uh, era. So anyway, I don't think it really changes much since he's also wasn't he convicted in or he's been accused I don't know in California. I know he was sentenced in a California case too. 16 anyway. He's in jail, and I suspect even though this case has been now overturned, he will remain in jail. The thing is, that's a case that if it goes back to where it started, will end up in the hands of the district attorney, now busily trying to get another sex offender to come to justice. So this will end up back in Bragg's hands. Not that he dealt with it the first time around. Good God in heaven. You can't make it up. Oh. And this Supreme Court, God help us. If you heard, well, read, reporting, and in fact heard something, because there is some audio that is available, of the court yesterday hearing the case from Idaho, an abortion case. Remember when they scuttled Roe v. Wade, and the genius Justice Samuel Alito wrote the opinion, and a big part of his opinion uh, said that no, this belongs in the states, and we're that's no, this goes back to the states. This is not for us. And since that brilliant decision that he wrote, one abortion case after another has come right back to the court, the Supreme Court, including this one, which is so mind blowing. And I don't even want to get into it, but in which anyone who apparently listened to the questioning in the case about Idaho's misogynistic and brutal law about abortion and the consequences thereof was taken by the fact that it was only the females in the black robes who seemed inclined to comprehend the import, that looked at this in a totally different way than the guys in the black robes. And so it was the women who were simply in their questioning often aghast at what the people that are representing Idaho were saying. Even the one woman on the bench that was put there by Donald Trump and is herself an abortion foe, at least seemed, by all accounts, to be troubled by certain things. And it just underscores how important it is to have women represented in these positions. Because if it had been just a generation ago and the case is being heard only by men, there would be no female understanding, since the case involves women's bodies, and nobody knows women's bodies better than women. It's just beyond belief. Apparently, at one point, Justice Kagan, Elena Kagan, who was apparently nearing apoplexy, said, it cannot be the right standard of care to force somebody into a helicopter. No, but that's what this Idaho law has done. Pregnant women in a desperate situation have not been able to gain the care they need in an emergency room in Idaho, and have been instead in a horrible state, literally loaded into a helicopter, a life flight helicopter, to be gotten to another state that actually has a little more of a concern about women dying for no good reason. Surely it can't be the right standard of care to force somebody onto a helicopter. Oh. The number of doctors, obstetricians, gynecologists, who used to call Idaho home and have just packed their bags and said, I am out of here because I cannot do the job, and in fact, a job that I took an oath to do no harm. I cannot do my job here because this state is mandating, in fact, that I could well be in a position where I would, by their law, have to do harm. I could help a woman. I could help her. But Idaho says, oh, no, you can't. You just throw that woman into a helicopter and get her the hell out of here. And my understanding is that nobody can tell how the court's going to go on this, except it looks like they'll probably side with Idaho. Unless all the women hang together, including Barrett, and they pick off one male, all of whom are conservatives. maybe that would be the Chief Justice. Unbelievable, this court. And the court now, of course, is listening to arguments that whether or not, in fact, presidents are above the law. Remember Nixon's famous statement to interviewer Robert Frost? Not Robert Frost, David, poet Robert Frost, interviewer David Frost. Remember? He said, if the president does it, it's not a crime. And back in those days, we were so appalled by that statement. Everybody, after they were appalled, just laughed at it. But this Supreme Court said, well, I think that is worthy of us delaying Trump's trials and listening to. And then after we listen to these absurd arguments that a president is above the law, we will retire for a few months, ensuring that none of these trials will occur before his re-election, we hope. That's what they're thinking. Oh. And it just keeps piling up, right? Arizona, one of the battleground states, one of the ones where Biden squeaked out a win, one of the ones that Trump and his minions went after, making threatening calls. Well, I start with cajoling calls, which ended up becoming threatening calls to find votes, to find fake electors. Yeah? How many cases has this awful human being? Our entire legal system seems to be dealing, it doesn't matter, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, Florida, New York, everywhere you look, it's Trump and his criminal conduct. Now, what's fascinating about this Arizona thing is they could have brought essentially the same case that Georgia brought. Because it is the same kind of thing. They just didn't go as far as Fani Willis. They're not saying it's racketeering, but it is. It's a coordinated attempt involving all kinds of people, including office holders and folks close to the President of the United States, attempting to steal the electors that the voters of Arizona had chosen and replace them through forgery and all kinds of other crimes. I mean, it's unbelievable. And this one too, it's the same crowd that got named in Georgia. So it's Giuliani, Mark Meadows. Oh, there's one different. Who is it? This woman, Bob, Bobb. She's one of these brilliant attorneys that has worked for Trump. And she has been indicted in the Arizona case for attempting to, criminally keep the votes of Arizonans from being counted. Do you know what she does now? You know what her job is? Because you can't make it up. Only in a world of Trump that Trump made can you say that this woman, Bob, who is now under indictment, is currently working as the head of, I think the proper term is senior counsel for election integrity for the Republican National Committee. You can't make it up. Under indictment for trying to steal an election, she now is the senior counsel for election integrity for the people who tried to steal the election, the Republicans, specifically Donald Trump's Republican National Committee. And I really am blown away by how often he escapes, because he is an unindicted co-conspirator in the Arizona case. Unindicted, but at the center of it always. Oh my God. You know, the man, that physician's assistant, was she right on the money? This is not good for any of us. He's hurting us. He's you know what? I mean, we're losing quality time in our own lives. We're the stress that he has unleashed in so many of us who think it's our responsibility to stay tuned in. That stress, eats away at our bodies in various ways. And yeah, he's killing us. Okay. Oh, let's do something just nice for a second. This is courtesy of Pittsburgh City Paper, a wonderful free publication that, as you know, I am affiliated with. They got the cutest story about Sophie Masloff. God, I miss her. Sophie Masloff and the great tenor Pavarotti. So why can't I find it? I will. Here it is. And it turns out that Pavarotti, I guess, had to cancel some kind of a concert here, and he came back later to make up for it because so many people had tickets and whatever. So the year is 1990. Sophie is the mayor, and Pavarotti comes back, and this is at the Civic Arena, accompanied by the Pittsburgh Opera Orchestra. And there's a guy in it that's with the mayor. His name is Tom Jason. And Pittsburgh City Paper calls him Pittsburgh's disco king and one of the city's most prolific entertainment promoters. And that he was responsible for arranging Pavarotti's Pittsburgh trip. And he spent much of the evening sitting with Sophie during Pavarotti's performance. And this guy, Jason, recalls this. This is his words. It's already like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and things started at 8. And Sophie says, Tom, I'm really hungry. I didn't have any lunch. Is there any food anywhere? And he said to Sophie, Soph, just stay right here. I'll go hunt you some. And it turned out that all the concession stands were closed. But this guy, knowing the lay of the land, went to an area in the arena that had food for employees. And again, to quote him, he says, so I get pizza, I get hot dogs, I get hot sausage, soft pretzels. That's all they had. Bring it back to Sophie. She's chomping down. And then he sets the setting a little bit better. He says, now, in back of us are the scapes and the melons. I could hear them talking. They're saying, that's disgusting. Pavarotti's singing, and she's eating hot dogs. I love it. Meanwhile, Sophie also says to the guy in between chomping on her hot dogs, hey, Tom, one last request. Any chance I can have a dance with Pavarotti and you could take a picture? And yep, that's what happened. And the picture, which is in the PG City paper, Post Gazette City paper, is delightful. Sophie dancing with Pavarotti and full of hot dogs. I love it. I love it. Oh, what a wondrous character was she. Okay, so back into the muck of it, I guess. Let me think. Oh, I did watch. I think what was it? NBC's news last night, um, and I was taken by one of the stories, which was about new rules. This is Pete Buttigieg, our transportation secretary, was the one whose voice they used the most because he announced new rules, like Bill Maher, new rules about airlines having to treat people better. And I mean, anybody who flies, I mean, these rules are just, they're wonderful. They include, in case you hadn't heard, um, they include, let me get, okay, used to be that the airlines themselves could define and determine what a significant, that's the word, significant delay meant. You might think because you missed an important meeting or you missed somebody's funeral, that a significant delay is like 2 hours beyond when you were supposed to get someplace. Anyway, each airline decided what a significant delay is, but the Department of Transportation, Joe Biden's Department of Transportation, has now set a single standard. When a departure or an arrival is delayed by 3 hours for domestic flights and 6 hours for international flights, that is considered a significant delay. And when there's a significant delay, passengers will get prompt refunds or cancellations. And they have absolutely made the airlines have to stop effing around with their beleaguered customers who they have failed again and again and again. And it lays out how the refunds have to happen and when they happen and how quickly they happen, and none of this flimflammery that's been par for the course. And I watched the piece and I thought, nowhere in the story did the name Biden come up. And I'm thinking this is part of the problem, that Biden gets no credit for doing things that benefit Americans very directly. And they appreciate these new benefits, but they don't connect them to Joe Biden. And I think this happens over and over and over again. Things he's done with jobs, things he's done with infrastructure, things he's done with college debt, things he's done with drug prices, things he's done, all of this stuff that directly impacts in a positive way the people. There's no understanding on the part of the people where this great new stuff's come from. And what the hell is that about? It drives me nuts. People think he's a terrible president. Do they have a clue? People who he's helping left, right, and center every other day, do they have a clue? Workers whose conditions are now better. I mean, all of this stuff that, in fact, this administration has done, and nobody knows it. Part of it is the fault of the administration for not knowing how to get the credit, to take the credit. And of course, it's also media that are not inclined to do good news stories. And if they do, as I said last night, that was a good news story for almost anybody watching it. But Biden's name never came up. It's his presidency. Okay. What else? Oh, see if you agree with this. I just came across this and I don't know. I think there's some truth in it, but I'm not gonna go to the mat because I mean anybody, it's a sort of binary kind of thing, which I am now so convinced that it is incredibly rare when anything is simple. Everything is complicated, and simplicity is rare. But the fact is we don't do simplicity. I mean, we don't do complexity. We don't like it. So we're constantly simplifying things, and our media does the same. And every simplification results in the reality not being properly explained. It's like you can't fit everything onto a bumper sticker and have it really be in any way meaningful. Although you damn well better get close, because in this day and age, a bumper sticker is about as much reading as most people are going to do. Anyway, this is the thinking of an economist, a guy named Arnold Kling, who said that you can divide the world. I mean, if you divide the world into, let's just say, how progressives, people who think of themselves as progressives, how they see the world, and then how conservatives see the world. He said this: progressives see the world as a struggle between the oppressor and the oppressed, and they try to help the oppressed. Okay? Now, I at first looked at that, I thought, why? And I thought, do I look at things like the oppressor and the oppressed? And I guess I sort of pretty much do. I see it now gone to an absurd degree with the current, intellectual crop of how a white person can never be oppressed, and how, I mean, I just, it becomes, of course, ultimately absurd. that someone who is themselves oppressed could easily at the same time be an oppressor. You could imagine somebody in an oppressed class, some person of color, who then, oppresses, let's say, somebody who might work for them. Because in that situation, the oppressed person of color is in a position of authority and power. I mean, it all becomes absurd. But the idea that this is the way liberals, progressive types tend to view the world is and it's a good guy, bad guy thing, right? And right there, it suggests that we could go wrong looking at things like that because, again, as I say, it ain't ever that simple. And the same economist says conservatives do not see the world that way. Absolutely don't. They see the world as a struggle between civilization and barbarism. Wow. And I guess they also see themselves as the upholders of civilization and those who fend off the barbarians at the gate, the hordes coming over our borders. But they see their job as protecting civilization. And, who knows? I found it sort of interesting. And as anything reduced to that kind of simplicity, it's, whatever. Hey, here's some other good news that came out of the Biden administration, well, out of the Federal Trade Commission specifically. And this was, as somebody who had my ability to earn a living impacted by these absurd laws, the Federal Trade Commission has banned almost all non-compete clauses. Now, I don't know if any of you ever labored in a field where you had to sign a non-compete. I did, because that goes with jobs in television and radio. So that I always I knew that if I were to, let's say, want to leave Channel 4, there's no way I could make the jump over to Channel 2 or 11 because, and they all, agree. It was sort of a way for the employers to protect themselves. Not, you can imagine, let's say one of the stations builds up a big reporter or an anchor or personality, and then another station says, man, she's good, I want her, and then can grab her and take all of that talent that the other station put effort into. That's the way they see it, and take her. Or people who are like hairdressers. If you work at in that field, invariably you end up having to sign these things because they say that if you were to leave and set up a shop right next door, you could steal my customers that I brought in here, and that's where these things come from. But what, of course, they do is they prevent people, workers, from leaving to go to a better situation for them. And I mean, I thought these were it turns out that an incredible number of American workers have non-competes but they won't anymore. 30 million American workers are now going to be relieved of this. I mean, it's just beyond belief. This what's a word? What's a word? What's a word? Impediment for them to get a good job. The head of the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, said, this rule to ban non-competes will ensure Americans have the freedom to pursue a new job, start a new business, or bring a new idea to the market. And she went on to say she thinks this is going to lead to the creation of thousands upon thousands of new startups, of companies. And she said it's going to also mean increased wages for a ton of workers. The Chamber of Commerce says they're going to sue. But again, Biden going to get any credit for that? Boy, does it make a difference what party gets power. Boy, does it make a difference, because all Republicans do is screw working people and give more and more to companies and the ones who already have so much. That's a given. I just want to say this about any college campus that does not have tents and screaming students living in them is just not with it. And I want to say, now that this has become the thing to do, I wonder how sheepishly the straggler schools feel. We better do this or we look like, I don't know, we're not cool. This is the thing to do. So I just wanted to say this, as these things get crazier and crazier and spread, that this, as I said yesterday, is a danger to Biden. And I also want to say that the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, making a beeline to Columbia yesterday with his hordes of awful Republican members of the House in tow, trying to make hay out of this. I want to say, as somebody who's got my own problems with it, beware of Christian nationalists bearing gifts. I'm talking to Jews. Beware. Oh, he sure seems to be very concerned about anti-Semitism on college campuses. I have not seen the same concern about anti-Semitism all over the place. No, this fits into the Republicans' desire to take down academia. This is just wonderful for them. If in fact their whole worldview is about civilization versus the hordes, then this stuff's made for them, right? So no, Mike Johnson is no friend to Jews, on this issue. He is using Jews right now, as are the Republicans using Jews. Any Jew who falls for this crap should have their head examined. Hey, speaking of heads, I didn't mention this before, but since it's the last show of the week, I got to get it in. I've been sitting on it. Colorado passing this law that protects our brains, our thoughts. I mean, have you heard about that? It's beyond belief. There are, technologies now that you can put like a thing that's like a headband on your head and it monitors your brain activity. These are called neurotechnologies. They will only get more and more and more some. So, and they're taking in, as all these things do, data. And that data is literally what is happening in your brain. And because every thought you have, the fact that I'm forming a sentence now, all of that is what it requires is, electric signals in my brain going bzz, 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 bzz. It's all, we're a machine. And last week, the governor of Colorado signed a bill. It's the first of its kind in the United States. It will not be the last, to ensure that data coming out of our heads will remain private. It passed overwhelmingly. There's only one person in the Colorado House and Senate that voted against it. You know, and I don't know that I even comprehend this, but I'm glad. It's one of the few times you see government getting in ahead of the technology companies. It says here, unlike sensitive data about your health obtained from medical devices in clinical settings, which are already, as you know, protected by federal health law, neurotechnology, what's happening in your head, is essentially unregulated. And that means that companies that will get better and better at gathering this stuff, that companies can harvest just huge troves of highly sensitive brain data. And then they can turn around and sell that. That's how this works, to third parties who will then, I guess, know how to get you to spend money, even more so than they already do. There are other countries in the world that have already seen to this at the federal level. Chile, Brazil, Spain, Mexico, Uruguay have already laws that protect brain-related data. They've even put it in their constitutions. Oh my God, what a world we live in. That's right. I've heard that the non-compete restrictions do not apply to nonprofit healthcare, so it would not help those who work at UPMC. Oh, I don't know. You mean, yeah, I can see where they'd have, where a doctor is told if you leave here, you can't hang a shingle anywhere near here. Why wouldn't it appeal? That I don't know, and I can't respond. I do not know. Um, Speaking of UPMC, man, they're laying off 1,000 people. That's a lot of families. That's a big impact. I saw somewhere person on the street kind of interview said, well, I mean, they bought a Super Bowl ad, saying they got tons of money, but when it comes to keeping some poor soul employed, that they all of a sudden feel like they don't have enough money. God, I don't know. The world has gone mad today. Oh, and you know what? So I had a CNN on before the show started, just seeing if anything, was happening, and I knowing full well it was, and damn if I didn't see CNN break away from the studio to allow the horror Donald Trump to approach the microphones as he entered court, uh, and they just let him blather BS. He started talking about, oh, the stock market's crashing. He did a campaign speech, and only as an afterthought did he say, and here I am, gagged and unable to, they let him fire off all of this invective and, in fact, fake news. And then they come back to the studio and they said, we're going to fact check that for you in a second. And I'm thinking, no, why even carry that? If what he is saying, and invariably it will be lies. If why would you give him time every day of his trial in front of a microphone to give a campaign speech? It's mind-blowing to me. If in fact you have to have somebody standing by to immediately rebut everything he has just said, then why not just not bother letting him say it? You could certainly have cameras there, only use that video and audio, not live, but after you vetted it, and take all the lies out, and maybe you'll end up with 3 seconds, right? That would be a more, I think, responsible way for the media to deal with it. Okay, another little thing I just want to get in here before we run out of time. This has to do with McCormick running against Bob Casey for the Senate. McCormick, who Dr. Oz famously elbowed out during the last primary for the Senate, and Oz then winning the right to take on Fetterman, and we know how that went. Well, McCormick's back. He's going to say, okay, let me take on Casey. And the New York Times did a piece about how, his campaign story. I was born in a log cabin, those stories. How his is particularly misleading. So that his campaign ads are always showing you the farm. This is the farm I grew up on and where I worked every summer. Yep, and here's a line from one of his ads. I've truly lived the American dream. My life's journey from growing up on a farm in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, to graduating from West Point, and then blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the thing. He also talks about his parents. He calls them school teachers. My parents were school teachers. In an interview in 22, he said, I started with nothing, and they didn't have anything. So you get, the usual picture of, yeah, I grew up in a log cabin with... Okay, here's the reality. David McCormick is the son of a well-regarded college president. That's the school teacher. College president, who later became chancellor of higher education systems in Pennsylvania and Minnesota. And in fact, McCormick grew up in the president's sprawling hilltop residence, which students at Bloomsburg University called the president's mansion. Now, the family, having means, not only lived in a mansion on campus, but the father, the poor little school teacher, he did buy up some farmland outside of town. And McCormick, when he was trying for, when he lost out to Oz, he had a campaign in which he showed the farm and called it the McCormick Tree Farm, which it wasn't. It was, according to the locals, a very nice place where his mother raised Arabian horses. That's something rich people do. I never heard of a poor person raising Arabian horses. Okay, so there's that. When you're one of the richest people in the country, Dave McCormick, beware, because I find him a formidable candidate by virtue of checking all the sort of boxes. I mean, he's successful, he's good looking, he's got his own money, so he doesn't need to go begging. But he made his money as the manager of the largest hedge fund, and understanding what hedge funds are suggests that he's never done anything productive in his life. Oh, got lots of money, but produce something? No. Hedge funds are like vultures. Okay, I see I'm out of time. I'm going to have to call it a day. For that matter, I'm calling the week. And I'll see you back on Monday. And God knows, let's just assume we're all still here. I'm serious. And we'll slog through whatever's happened between now and then. And also just want to reiterate that I will be, that's my last week before I take a week off. Okay, just wanted to say. And hang in there, guys. But yeah, take care of yourselves. That's all I'm going to say. Self-care, really important. And I'm not doing a very good job of it myself.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.